Paris, 1700s, before the revolution, before the barricades. From a distance, the city looks orderly. Stone buildings, bridges, markets, and churches locked into place. But beneath that surface, Paris is under strain. Space is scarce. Food is fragile. Labor never stops. Ideas move faster than authority. This is not postcard Paris. It is a city packed tight within its walls, where rivers carry survival, streets carry tension, and crowds carry rumors. Every bridge, market, and alley feeds a system slowly overheating. Using historical maps and records, these images reconstruct Paris as it functioned day by day, not as legend, but as a living mechanism. Calm on the surface, pressure beneath. To understand that pressure, we step back, not into the streets, but above the city itself. This map is not decoration. It is the structure that shaped everything that followed. The Plan Turgot, published in 1739, reveals the city as a compressed organism shaped by centuries of habit rather than modern design. Walls enclose dense neighborhoods, while narrow streets trap movement, air, and light. Every church, workshop, courtyard, and market is fixed in place, leaving almost no room for expansion as population continues to rise. This density magnifies every problem. Food shortages spread faster, disease lingers longer, authority struggles to respond. The map exposes sharp contrasts between monumental buildings and the crowded spaces where most Parisians actually lived and worked. It shows a capital operating at its limits. Plan Turgot is not decoration or symbolism. It is evidence. A city already under pressure, long before revolution gave that pressure a name. From this structure, every later conflict, scarcity, delay, and decision would echo across the entire city itself. The Seine, a city fed by water. Paris survived because of the river. In the 1700s, the Seine functioned as the city's primary supply line, carrying grain, firewood, wine, stone, and everyday goods into the capital. Nearly everything Parisians consumed passed along this waterway before reaching markets and workshops. Barges arrived daily, unloaded by dock workers who moved cargo inland by hand and cart. This labor was constant, physical, and vulnerable to disruption. When the river froze, flooded, or slowed during drought, the effects were immediate. Bread grew scarce, prices rose, anxiety spread. Food crises did not begin in bakeries or streets. They began here. The Seine tied thousands of livelihoods to timing and flow, turning ordinary logistics into a source of risk. Paintings of the river appear calm, but they record a fragile system on which the entire city depended. Pont Neuf, where the city met itself. Pont Neuf was never silent. In the 18th century, this bridge connected the right bank, the left bank, and the Ile de la Cité, forcing every class to cross the same space each day. Merchants walked beside nobles, beggars passed soldiers, performers competed with pamphlet sellers. Because of this mixture, information moved quickly. Rumors spread faster than official notices. Anger gathered before authorities could react. The bridge was watched closely, not for beauty, but for behavior. Crowds formed where paths converged. Conversations turned public. Moods shifted in minutes. Pont Neuf functioned as an accelerator of social tension. It did not create conflict, but it amplified it. Every grievance found witnesses. Every complaint found listeners. What appears as ordinary movement was constant negotiation between order and disorder. On this bridge, Paris encountered itself daily, measuring its patience, its divisions, and its limits, under pressure that shaped future upheaval and revolutionary outcomes. Les Halles, bread and stability. Les Halles was the stomach of Paris. In the 18th century, this vast market supplied food to hundreds of thousands of residents each day. For most families, bread consumed the largest share of income, making price changes dangerous. Officials monitored Les Halles constantly, aware that shortages could spark unrest within hours. So did ordinary citizens, who watched deliveries, weights, and prices closely. When supplies thinned, anxiety spread through the crowd. Arguments followed quickly. Whispers turned into accusations. Food crises did not begin in palaces or assemblies. They began here, among baskets, scales, and exhausted buyers. Les Halles transformed logistics into politics. Control of grain meant control of calm. Failure meant disorder. Historical engravings show density, urgency, and strain rather than abundance. This market reveals how survival shaped behavior and how hunger eroded patience. In Paris, stability was measured daily in loaves, and when bread failed, order followed soon after. Faubourg Saint-Antoine, the labor district. Faubourg Saint-Antoine was built on labor rather than ceremony. This district housed thousands of craftsmen whose lives followed the rhythm of work instead of court ritual. Furniture makers, carpenters, and woodworkers filled its streets with sound from dawn until dusk. Workshops lined narrow roads, and housing pressed close to production spaces. Wages were unstable. Hours were long. Costs continued to rise. Because workers lived and labored beside one another, experience became shared. Skills, tools, and grievances circulated quickly. This closeness created solidarity. It also created awareness. When hardship intensified, this neighborhood responded as a unit, not out of chaos, but coordination. Faubourg Saint-Antoine later appeared repeatedly at the center of protest and unrest. Its residents understood how essential their labor was to the city, yet how little influence they possessed. This district reveals who sustained Paris daily, and how collective pressure formed quietly through routine, endurance, and proximity over time. Inside the workshop. Pressure up, close. Inside the workshop, Paris felt smaller and heavier. Rooms were tight, ceilings low, and tools crowded every surface. Artisans worked beside apprentices, repeating motions learned through years of practice. Many lived where they worked, blurring rest and labor into a single routine. Days stretched long, lit by small windows and endurance. Noise, dust, and fatigue became ordinary companions. Every finished object carried hours of effort. Payment rarely reflected that effort. Workers learned to measure imbalance precisely. These interiors shaped awareness. Hands calculated time. Eyes compared wages to rising costs outside. Illness, injury, or a missed contract could ruin a household. Security was thin. Dependence was constant. The workshop was not romantic. It was instructive. It taught limits, bargaining, and patience. Pressure accumulated quietly in these rooms. Before slogans or crowds, frustration was learned here through repetition, confinement, and the realization that survival demanded more labor than reward, day after day. Enlightenment salons, ideas in motion. While streets and workshops carried pressure, another Paris gathered indoors. In elegant salons hosted by wealthy women, conversation replaced noise and force. Philosophers, writers, scientists, and officials met to discuss reason, authority, religion, and power. Ideas were tested aloud, challenged politely, and refined carefully. These rooms felt calm, controlled, and distant from hunger outside. Yet their influence traveled far. Letters, pamphlets, and books carried salon debates into cafes, streets, and workshops. Language gave shape to dissatisfaction already felt by many. Salons did not represent the poor. They rarely spoke of daily labor, but they questioned inherited privilege and absolute rule. These gatherings did not cause revolution directly. They prepared it intellectually. By giving words to inequality and authority, salons helped transform private frustration into public critique. What began as conversation slowly became conviction, and conviction would eventually seek action beyond these rooms. Poor quarters, where pressure settled. In the poorest districts of Paris, pressure accumulated fastest. Overcrowded housing pressed families into small, unstable spaces where privacy barely existed. Sanitation was weak, illness common, and work unreliable. These neighborhoods absorbed every shock first. When bread prices rose, hunger arrived here immediately. When jobs disappeared, there were no reserves. People lived close enough to hear every argument and every rumor. A missing delivery, an arrest, or a whisper of hoarding could change the mood of an entire street within hours. Survival depended on informal trade, shared resources, and constant vigilance. Patience wore thin quickly. These areas were not inherently violent. They were exposed. They carried the weight of decisions made elsewhere. By the late 18th century, pressure had nowhere left to move. Crowds that would later fill streets and squares were formed here first, shaped by endurance, frustration, and the knowledge that stability had already failed them.